You have reached the Sprint voicemail box of 708-5712.
Jake, it's me. Listen, God knows why, but we're back on the pool bag with Mike and Ryan. Okay? Now, this really should go without saying, but since it's you, I'm going to say it anyway. We need to lay off references to hand jobs or really just anything dealing with the pelvic area during this show. And fucking Dollar General jokes, we need to stop those. And I really wish you'd fucking stop making fun of Nightwing. You know Mike likes that guy. I know you think Nightwing is the worst thing to happen to America since herpes was invented. I know you think Nightwing is just a shitty version of Batman with a smile, and no one really likes the character, and he gets by under Batman's shadow. Whatever. It's okay. We're here. We're guests. Let's try and act like it, okay, buddy? All right, we'll see you on the show.
I changed the menu. Welcome to The Pull Bag. Join us as we dig out our latest comics and discuss them with a rotating panel of the GCRN crew. So sit back and enjoy this week's Pull Bag.
Hello and welcome to the Pull Bag, which has become the Punisher Bag for this first character month here inside the Pull Bag. I'm your host, Steve Jim Mike. Joining me, of course, is Ryan the UnevenFlow. Hello.
Yo.
How are you?
Good.
And from that extra long internet-only character podcast, Punisher Body Count, we have Jake and Dane. Hey, guys.
Thank you for your enthusiasm.
Yep.
I appreciate that.
Exactly.
Nightwing still sucks. What up?
Fuck you.
Strong start. Strong start.
All right, that was my only one. No more.
Yeah.
I'm done.
Oh, don't worry. I'll get into it later.
No more.
Here we go. All right, so before anybody else, takes the mic and talks our ears off for the next hour or so, let me explain. Throughout the end of 2013, and shut up, Ryan.
I guess this is going to be passive-aggressive bag today. Oh, well.
Fuck you guys, I'm going home. So, the end of 2013 marks where we're going to do character months every now and then here in the Pull Bag. So we'll take a series of trade paperbacks, specifically like beginning to end stories, and I don't care how anal retentive I am about that, and we'll do an entire month of content based on that character. The first one that we're going to be doing is The Punisher, based on Ryan's list of suggestions to me.
Based on Ryan's man crush on the character for some reason.
You said it, not me.
Damn right.
So from episode 41 to 48 is going to be Punisher Month. They will air twice weekly on the Geekcast Radio Network throughout November, from November 2nd through November 27th. So that will be that. Let's go around the table and just briefly, if that's possible with this crew, discuss when each of you first got into the character of the Punisher. Ryan, you can go first.
Haven't we already been over this on other sites? I mean, my brother collected the comics. I borrowed them quite a bit. He's 6 years older than I am, so this is a while ago, and I'm already old. And kind of lost track of the character for a while, especially since he was dead in the 90s. And really got back into it with Welcome Back, Frank, and then collected everything religiously ever since then. There you go. That was brief.
Right.
Late.
Yes,
I'm
exactly. Out. Jake?
I'll make this brief as well. I used to go to this comic book shop in Chicagoland called Amazing Fantasy, and they had a section where they had all their Punisher graphic novels, and then they had a sign that said, Punisher, almost as cool as Wolverine. And then I had read Preacher by then, and I was a big fan of Garth Ennis, and I heard he was on the book. I picked up Welcome Back, Frank, and it was all over from there.
I like how so far the same title's been mentioned twice.
It's about to be mentioned thrice.
I like how your comic store is named after a certain title. I'm just wondering if the actual store number was 15.
No, but that would have been funny.
Yeah, that would have been very funny.
I think the number was like 4145 LaGrange Street.
Wow. All right, Dane, what about you?
I know nothing of this character. I was promised a Dollar General gift card for being on this show, and that is why I am here.
You can only get the Dollar General gift card if you have a Dollar General hoe to trade.
It's true. The exchange rates are kind of rough these days. Thanks.
Yeah, this isn't Canada after all. This is the United States. Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Sorry, what was that? Our dollar being worth more than yours for a good portion of the year, and the fact that everything's cheaper.
That's not good
lately.
for Canadians because that makes your export market shit. It's not something to brag about.
Yeah, except our economy's still in better shape anyway, even with our export market as shit.
You need to get some important questions out there. You're from Canada, Ryan. Are you currently living in Canada?
Yes.
Yes, he is currently
We need to
living.
speak off the air about tobacco products, if you know.
Oh, God, don't even. Just, holy Christ.
Listen, I have glaucoma. I should probably get that out of the way.
We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to get into Punisher Born after this. So the first trade we're going to talk about in this month-long coverage on the Punisher is Max Comics' The Punisher Born.
By Garth Ennis, drawn by Derek Robertson.
Yes.
Inks by Tom Palmer.
Published by Marvel Entertainment, LLC.
Hey, spoilers, motherfucker!
Parental advisory, explicit content.
Yeah, really.
Direct edition.
I wasn't sure how I was gonna like this being the introduction to the character in the comics, because beforehand
I was hoping it would traumatize the shit out of you.
Me too.
I used to work in social work. Nothing can traumatize me now.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
Way to bring us down.
Yeah.
Well, it's either that or, watch that shitty Ray Stevenson movie on loop over and over and over again.
Ray
That
Stevenson
doesn't
was
amuse you.
awesome. It was the movie that was bad.
You humorless motherfucker.
So, The Punisher Born, as Ryan said, by Garth Ennis. I like this. The whole time, and I think the reason why I'm not too scarred about reading this book, the whole time I kept picturing, hey, this is Forrest Gump without Forrest Gump.
Oh, okay.
Really, I must have missed all of the attempted prisoner rape and constant murder in Forrest Gump. I may have to rewatch it.
Remember that one time Forrest Gump shoved a man's face through a window and that man became his arch enemy? Yeah, I remember Lieutenant Dan.
I think you've jumped into year one.
Oh, no, I haven't. No, because they both are set in the Vietnam time. But anyway, regardless, I don't know. When I read this, I'm like, okay, cool. And I'm used to the 2004 film Origin. That's what I'm used to. But I went into this with no really preconceived notions other than what Ryan told me about it was that it's the Punisher during the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
So it's not like I have some 70-year-old bias like most comic fans do.
You know what's interesting about Punisher Born is that the Punisher, when you think about it, kind of has three origins, especially in the Max universe. You've got his traditional origin, which is the family being murdered in Central Park. You've got his time in Vietnam, which is what this trade paperback is about. And Garth Ennis even wrote a one-shot, I think it was called Tiger. Yeah, or something like that, where, growing up in New York and seeing some of the actions that people in his community did to stand up for injustice and this sort of thing. So, he really does have three layers of origin to him. So I just thought I'd throw that out there. I thought I was going to go somewhere with that, but never mind.
Don't worry, you didn't. No.
No, I agree with Jake simply because one of the things I liked about the Max Universe Punisher is that there's never really any clean break into, well, now I am truly the Punisher. It is, and that's a very dramatic and easy thing for a lot of comic book characters to make, like this identity break. But finding Frank, looking into the life of Frank Castle and trying to go through a chicken or the egg situation in his life is one of the more rewarding things about his narrative.
I'd agree. The only thing before we get too far or too into the issue, too, I'll add is as much as I really hate to say it, I'm not sure Vietnam can always be his origin because unlike a lot of the superhero origins, there's a fixed time to Vietnam.
Sure.
And let's say 10 years from now, and the character is going to be around 10 years from now, 20 years, et cetera, et cetera. 10 years from now, what's Vietnam going to mean to people? I mean, as much as I hate to say it, it's a war that's not commonly taught in certain curriculums and that kind of thing. And not to mention that, but it dates the character with a real life day. It's not as though Peter Parker, you say like, he was bit by the spider in 1965. So, I mean, there's no date to him. They could just say, like, Peter was bit in 94 now, or whatever. No. It's not an option.
I completely understand what you're saying. And Dane and I have addressed this on Body Count. I think they can keep the Punisher. There's two ways they can go about this. One, Marvel's not afraid to get out the ridiculous continuity, and then come up with some stupid reason to age him back to 20 years old, right? I mean, they've done it with Magneto a bajillion times.
Yeah.
They can do it with him. Secondly, they can just make a Punisher title be almost like a period piece. Punisher in his universe just happens to take place in the 70s and 80s and maybe 90s at the latest. So they can go about it that way. But one of the things we discuss on the show is that there's something unique about Vietnam that makes the Punisher, at least in my opinion. I don't want to speak for Dane, but
I agree. And as Ennis said, part of that too is it was the dirty war. I mean, right. There was the line in Welcome Back, Frank. You do things that. The problem with Iraq was it wasn't Vietnam, and
right.
Yeah, there's that aspect of it. It's something I'll probably get into more with the Rucka run, but I don't necessarily have an issue with them not defining which war. I think it kind of sucks, but on the other hand, you mentioned, Magneto and everybody else has been de-aged. Right. Frank doesn't work well in the superhero non-realistic universe, or he doesn't work as well as a lot of other ones. And
well, that's why I think that I think that's why he could do a standalone like 70s or 80s book, and you can put campy characters whenever you need your obligatory crossover. Like, I really feel they can do a separate thing for him. I mean, hell, they do it with the X-Men every month.
Well, they did it with Max, too, and I mean, I liked the idea of the character aging, and, there was a clearly defined sort of run there. And for the record, I mean, Ennis always intended for Frank to die at some point. Mm-hmm. He just wasn't sure when it was going to be. And obviously, of course, Aaron got the opportunity to off him. Mm-hmm. But back to Bourne, which is the start of this.
Sure.
I was about to say, sir, you are going widely off topic, and that is not okay.
And the funny thing is that it's not this issue or this collection that collects 1 through 4. To me, it didn't seem like Frank's story at all. In certain parts it does, but it's more Goodwin's story than it is Frank's. Because you've got Goodwin narrating that pretty much the entire time.
Mm. Well, he's the point of view character for sure.
Yeah, right, and I think you kind of need that, especially with somebody like Frank who's quiet. And I mean, they haven't established any sort of monologue for him at this point. This is chronological.
Yeah, you need a Mickey Duca in there somewhere.
No, you don't. You don't need comic relief in the middle of the fucking Vietnam War. But anyway. Damn it, just open up their issue and get to it, Mike.
I am. I really love the art. I think the art is amazing. course, next week that might change. But
The art is, the Derek Robertson art is amazing. It adds a lot of grit and realism to the story. Lots of dark shading and shadows and this sort of thing, which I know the inker does a lot of that, but the penciler a lot of times sets it up to be that way. So, lots of gore, which is always good.
Yeah. And like I said, I love the point of view of Goodwin. I think that's a great way to shape the story, is basically tell Frank's story, like have somebody narrate it. And I think that's
They
great.
chose sort of a clean All-American for it, too, was the idea.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that you needed the perspective. Like, if you would have had a first-person Frank Castle narration, sort of like, War Journal, blah blah blah. We've already heard Frank's voice, in reading so many other Punisher stories. In order to see him become the Punisher before actually putting the skull on, we really needed to see it from an outside point of view, from a third-person perspective.
I love how the first issue in the story basically ends with what I'm assuming is his own internal monologue.
It's
strange.
I talked to Garth about this. I'm not on a first name basis. I talked to Ennis. There we go, about this. I liked it a lot more before he came out and sort of defined what he thought the voice was. I liked when he left it up to the reader. He's on record as saying it's meant to be the devil, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he basically mentions
Grim.
it as the Grim Reaper, as the incarnation of death itself.
Some form, yeah.
Yeah.
Though I'm sure it's Mephisto at the end of the day.
Sure, but I have the hardcover, and even in his proposal for this miniseries, he even says, while Frank might represent the grim, unstoppable, and in itself U.S. war machine at its worst, young Stevie is America at its best. He sees Nam as a terrible misstep, and then he later mentions that we are eventually going to have this outside voice talk to Frank, and even though I'm not going to outright say it, it's basically Death talking to Frank and trying to cut a deal with him.
Yeah, I actually, or at least the interpretation I had way back when I read this in the individual issues, was that, it could be Death. The one I sort of liked was it was actually the Punisher, Frank himself. There was something deeper within him.
That's what I thought it was too. Yeah,
sort of like how sort of like in Watchmen, how there's the Night Owl, the suit, and then there's Dan Dreiberg, the man.
Yep. And I mean,
well, I would equate it to
Eisenberg and Walter White. Oh, sorry.
No, shut up. I would equate it more to Willem Dafoe's Norman Osborn versus Green Goblin in the original Spidey film in 2002.
Sure, that's a more campy way of looking at it, sure.
Well, no, I mean, that technically is what they did in that Spider-Man movie. It's like, you can't deny your nature, Norman. They fired you. It's like, okay, time for me to go nuts. You need that outside voice. Yeah.
Love
one thing I like about Ennis is that in the story, he leaves it open to interpretation. Like, even Ennis is smart enough to go, okay, there's a lot of different ways you could see the Punisher's actions. I'm not going to tell you the right answer. I'm just going to leave, these actions out there, and you pick up the pieces yourself. I appreciate that.
And I hope Grant Morrison read this so he can learn how to do that properly.
Yeah. Maybe Grant Morrison will someday give you an axe for you to grind further.
For Jake Williams.
I'm not a big Morrison guy either.
I am.
Really?
I read every academic paper on him. I think he is a great No, literally, all of his annotations. I go, man, I get this. I understand this esoteric shit he's spitting. I'm sorry, some mongrels can't pick it up. But that's not his fault, goddammit.
Well, I understand it. I have no issue with it. I just think that there is not all that great a writer in the end. I have no issues with it. It's just, whatever. Why are we talking about Grant Morrison?
You're right.
I'll say this. The only thing I read is
because of Jake. That's the answer.
Yeah.
That's true.
You want to know, we got derailed so early on that we forgot to talk about how Dane got into the Punisher.
No, we talked about that.
Yeah, we did. We did.
Yeah, we just didn't
missed
care. There's a big difference between not
wow.
listening and not caring, and I like to think I walk that line every day of my life.
It's nice to know that the monster has a line, though. No rape. It's nice to know that he has a line somewhere.
Frank has lots of lines.
To be honest, rape is just a sideshow to what Frank wants to do, which is killing.
No, like I truly, Steve.
Right? I mean,
Steve Goodwin in the story brought up a good point. Frank Castle killing the woman that they captured was his version of helping her out. That was like in his version. It's like I did a good thing there.
That's why he kills her. Now, of course, we all know why he kills McDonald. I mean, he kills his own man.
To punish him.
Yeah, he says it's allowed. He thought he needed to be punished. So.
right.
That is a real that's something that really divided the fan base when he killed General McDonald.
General, this is McDonald is the soldier. The general is Patton.
Oh yeah, Colonel Ottman sick. General Patton. Yeah, I'm sorry. I got a bit ahead of you there.
Having said that, both of those did divide the fandom. Just for background here, McDonald is a soldier in Castle's squadron. This is for the listeners. I'm well aware you guys know this.
Sure.
And there's a wounded Viet Cong soldier, female, and McDonald, having pissed himself during her attack, essentially wants revenge by raping her. Castle calmly shoots her in the head, killing her while
she's being raped. Yep.
Yeah, and again, like later on, we just Stevie, and probably correctly, says that Castle thinks he's doing the best thing he can by killing this girl. And he then goes on to kill one of his own men, McDonald, by drowning him. And again, this was something that divided the fandom, but I had no issue with it.
Really? People were upset that he drowned the guy? What did they think was going to happen to him?
Remember when this was published, and I'm just going to be blunt about this. The Punisher in the 80s and 90s was more Batman. He didn't kill nearly as often. He had the batshit annoying habit of fucking letting people go so they could murder more people, i.e. Jigsaw.
Yes.
How many times did he corner Jigsaw in those old 80s comics and then just go like, I'll let you go as a message? Really?
Oh, we've actually actively avoided those comics on our show because they're so enraging.
And even Baron fell into it. Like, come on. So this was, remember, this is 2003. We're not used to Ennis's version at this point, or any of the others that have depicted him as a lot darker. And so the fact that he would off somebody who he actively recruited and brought out with him was a little shocking, I think, for some people. Not to me, though.
Yeah.
To me, Frank's always been, you commit a crime, you're dead.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I agree. And that's the other thing you brought up with like the issues of him letting people go in the 90s and 80s. Like one thing that I've sometimes not called out but reminded Punisher fans of is like a lot of people like to think the Punisher's better than certain Marvel characters because they don't fall into certain superhero traps. And I go, no, a lot of his stories rely on superhero conventions, whether you realize it or not. Like, oh man, time for wacky gadgets to come out of my van's ass.
Don't get me started on this stupid
time for
battle
Microchip
van.
to build me a helicopter out of fucking Legos or something. And like people like are, but then they will take a giant dump on Batman for no goddamn reason. But that's the thing. Like when we went into Max, Ennis finally said, like, no, we are truly going to divorce ourselves from those conventions. Buckle up, buddy. And some people, you are right, Ryan. Some people could not handle that.
Yeah, and there's still some. I mean, even when he's been reinserted back into the Marvel Universe, they do a good job of, and again, we'll get into this with later issues, but they really had to separate him because he's not Batman. I mean, Batman is a cuddly, friendly guy. And
I don't know about that.
No,
but
he
okay.
is. He truly does.
Compared
the main
to
thing
Frank,
about Batman is he does not want anyone to die. Batman.
Okay, yes. Compared to Frank in that instance,
well, it's
yes.
not just that though. In a lot of ways, Batman is fighting a war, but he has absolutely no concept of what that is.
Yeah.
Especially when you compare the two. I mean, Batman's this colorful universe where you've got clowns. Yes, they're psychotic, etc., etc. Frank's really grounded in reality, and to him, pretty much everyone is a monster. And we see it with an issue that we're not going to have in it, but the end. That really,
Oh man.
when we come right down to it, Frank's ultimate goal is to wipe out humankind. I mean, if he wants to eliminate all evil, he has to kill everyone, and I don't think he has a problem with that either.
My
I
copy.
don't know. I disagree with that nihilistic interpretation.
My copy of Punisher: The End came with a snub-nosed revolver and 2 bullets. I felt that was a bad add-on for that issue, but I understood why they added that. But still, kind of rough. But yeah, but I do understand that the Punisher can take on a very nihilistic view, and especially in current day. I think that there's a lot more room for interpretation than just that, but certainly
there is.
writers are lending themselves to that.
Sorry, I think deviating even more. I just like more of the Baron type interpretation where Frank does this out of some sense of revenge, even though he calls it punishment. But
no, it's weird. He does it more out of a sense of civic duty in a lot of that stuff.
No, he does it because it's part of the social contract. Everyone's in order to have protection, everyone's supposed to get along and fucking stop getting kids addicted to smack and all this sort of thing. Yeah. But I like the Baron interpretation where he does that, but every now and then he can help a homeless black rapper go back to school.
I was just thinking of that kid. Oh, man. Hello, Punisher Body Count listeners. Yeah. He's more than willing, like, oh, look at you. You're a hooker plastic surgeon with a heart of gold. I'll make sure you get settled in nice.
How can I help Harlem? Well, I'll just dress up in blackface. Oops.
Go fight with Luke Cage.
With Luke Cage, yeah.
Yeah.
Where were we again?
Why not just send Bruce Willis in the middle of Harlem?
Anyway. So, I mean, back to Bourne, before we get completely off.
The one thing that really made me, when I read this, the one thing that really made me think about the actual world that we live in today is what Goodwin says about, we have everything we could ever possibly want. Why can't we stay out of the rest of the world?
Open of issue 3.
Yes.
And he's got the entire monologue essentially about the Vietnam War. And, I mean, Ennis has made his feelings on it quite clear over the years between this, Fury, and everything else. And
which Fury Max was a masterpiece. Sorry.
Yes, I would agree. And it especially works well when you throw Bourne and the final trade of his Max run, Valley Forge, into the mix, because you get really this mix between Fury's sort of how he became who he is, as well as Frank, and they're very similar characters, but really different.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one is absolutely in love with war, and the other one's just been surrounded by it, and it's broken him in a lot of ways. But
in a lot of ways, I think the two characters are like Magneto and Professor X, except for they get along.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like Fury's the kind of guy that is, especially in the recent miniseries, Fury was the kind of guy that was more willing to kid himself about his intentions.
Agreed.
I mean, in every version of Ennis is a guy that says, like, Fury closes his one good eye toward the international politics and thinks that, things will be okay in the end. I just have to get through the bureaucratic bullshit. And it's like, no, the bureaucratic bullshit and the table under the table deals are going to happen whether you want to or not, Fury. And that always seems to screw the guy over.
The reason why that kind of the opening monologue and stuff from Goodwin really hit me was because, really, honestly, I know it's the whole, oh, we're the United States. We can, just because we can, we're going to type of thing.
We are, yeah. World
But
police.
why the hell are we still in Iraq?
Well, we're technically not. But
Okay, but
I think you mean like Afghanistan.
not Iraq, but like
And-
why is it? Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
2001 happened. Someone attacked us. I understand that.
Yeah.
But like, why did we have to have the Gulf War? Why can't we let? I just don't understand that. I mean, I just don't.
And in a lot of ways, that's why Ennis wrote this in, because things really haven't changed since the 70s. And yeah, Goodwin's monologue is, and that area is really the furthest we get away from Frank's story in this entire thing. And yet it all sort of comes back to it because, I mean, the insinuation in a lot of this book is that Frank Castle, or the Punisher, is a monster who was born out of that war. He was a soldier, he was used there, and they created him. And, of course, part of the question that's not actually asked is this still happening? Are there people like that? And there are. I mean, by the end of this book, it's pretty clear to me, and I think a lot of people, that Castle is just suffering from like severe mental problems, including post-traumatic stress disorder and other things. Like Robertson mentions it, that he wanted to draw a young man, but with his eyes that he's seen some shit.
No, like you're bordering on that 1,000-yard stare that everyone talks about. People have been through war so much, they just kind of look right through you. I really like, coming back to the art briefly, I really loved Frank Castle's expressions through all this. Like, you could definitely see he was a hardened person, but you still realize, wow, like so many other Vietnam soldiers, this guy was a boy. This guy was probably joined before he was 21. It was just, and whether he likes it or not, that innocence is still on his face, regardless of the things he's done in this war. I just thought that was so well done, because you're not allowed to see that in Punisher comics these days.
Yeah, no. And one of the things I like best about the Max series, maybe it's because I like to curse, is that it is explicit content, because you don't see in mainstream everyday comics where kids are going to read them, you don't see a lot of explicit stuff. So I like that Marvel created this explicit series. I think that's just amazing. And Dane, you're talking about the art. The art is just, every single facial feature Frank has had this entire run, this entire book, it's just drawn perfectly. Like the scene where he's gonna blow the guy up taking a shit.
And that's this is back into issue 3 again. I mean, and this is the first time Frank kind of tries to open up to Stevie to a certain extent, but I mean, he fails miserably because he's already really the character that, or the version of Frank that we see in Aaron's run whenever he goes back in the trade aptly titled Frank. He already has kind of lost that ability to have a normal conversation with somebody. He's already sort of lost. And I mean, the voice just sort of taunts him about it, asking him what the hell was that? And it's well done, and it's almost heartbreaking that he wants to reach out, but he just doesn't know how anymore. He's not even really a person in some ways.
Yeah, a lot of people like to try and bust on Jason Aaron for that, like going like, oh, he was so disconnected from his family. It's such bullshit. And I'm like, no, he's been disconnected for a while. Like this was clearly shown in Bourne, where he actually tries to make human contact with someone.
We talked about it in the pre-show. I mean, it's not that he doesn't love his family. He absolutely does love them in every way, and it's shown in almost every single panel. And I really don't understand how the hell people reading it don't get that, possibly due to illiteracy. But he does love them, and he absolutely cares about them, but he doesn't know how to stay or how to care for them anymore. He's just lost that. He's not the same person he was.
Yeah, and speaking of what Mike saying that he's drawn with his facial expressions perfectly, like look at the very end when he's coming off the plane and he's meeting his family. Like you get that picture where he's in his dress uniforms, he's super clean cut, has the Band-Aid on his cheek. And you can like look into his eyes and you can tell by looking at this is a character who is in the dress uniform, is representing, the few, the proud, the Marines. But yet at the same time, his eyes are like, I've just killed 1 million people. A lot of humanity is shit, and I'm just looking for an excuse to cut loose again.
And we as fans give Steve Dillon a lot of shit. Sometimes deservedly so. Well, we do.
No, we never rag on
Yeah,
Steve
right.
Dillon.
Anyway.
There's no way you could find 18 examples of that on any show.
No, I mean he's been given a lot of shit, but he need to give him credit that
you guys better not be spoiling any shit that I haven't read yet.
In Aaron's run, shut the hell up. In Aaron's run, he picks up a lot of that really well from Robertson. I thought that Robertson, to a certain extent too, has that same look that Dillon captured really well. I thought of, okay, I'm back. What the hell do I do with these people? Like, he doesn't know, it's as the soldier tells him in Frank as well, he doesn't know how to hold a baby or his wife or anything like that. He's been asking people to give him a 60 for these past few years. So, the concept of living a normal life frightens him at this point. And, he tries to have the conversation with Stevie. And Stevie's looking forward to going home, being a family man. Frank has nothing in common with this person anymore.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, we continue on, and I mean, the Viet Cong attack Valley Forge. The fourth issue is sort of a run and gun. And again, I
love the fourth issue.
The art absolutely stands out in this.
Oh, yeah.
Robertson's art, I've never seen somebody draw rain so well.
Oh, yes.
I know that sounds bad, but...
Well, no. Other than Millar. Millar's really good at drawing rain.
Millar? You mean Miller?
No, Millar. He spells it with an A or whatever.
But
or
he's the writer.
Who drew...
You're thinking of Mark Millar, I think, which is
who drew Wolverine, Enemy of the State?
Yeah, that was definitely not Mark Millar.
That was John Romita Jr.
Was it? Fine, that's the one good thing I can give JR is that he...
I was going to say, man, are you... aware of who drew that? You're not that big of a fan of the guy.
Jake is chewed on the cigar a little bit too long tonight.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I can give someone a compliment when they do something well. As much as I rag on, what's his name, Steve Dillon, the main gripes that I have is that it looks like he's cutting and pasting all of his characters' faces.
Yep.
And John Romita Jr. can be good when he's not drawing everyone looking like a refrigerator.
Yeah.
The other thing is, you were mentioning how you really liked how Mike, how you really like Derek Robertson drawing rain. You shouldn't feel embarrassed about that, because I kept wondering in my head, should I bring up I like how he draws so many folds in people's clothes? Because that sounds so arbitrary, but it means a lot because it brings in that actual realism. Because you realize, actually, clothing does bend. We're not in a spandex-filled world. This is where people wear Kevlar and people wear their fatigues, and that shit bends and folds and wraps around themselves.
He really drew everything really well. And I mean, the amount of detail in the book is phenomenal. And I mean, in terms of Punisher artists over the years, he's on my short list, along with Parlov, of course, and Leonardo Fernandez, who's one of my all-time favorites.
But hey,
of course, go ahead.
Let's not give any praise to Paul Mounts. Like, the colors really enhance Robertson's drawings. I mean, I don't know if this book would be the same without the colors.
Yeah, the colors are amazing, especially on a lot of the explosions and a lot of the gunfire.
Or even in issue 4 when that flare goes off and they see all the Viet Cong by the light of the flare. Yep. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I want to make sure
that's what I was going to say. The whole, flares up. That whole scene is just amazing. Mm-hmm. I love how they kind of make the fact that Stevie got thrown into the plane on that opposite page of where he gets thrown. I love how they almost make that an explosion, even though it's supposed to be, the white light. Go to the tunnel. Go to the end of the tunnel. I get that, but I just like how that fades, where he's on the plane, and then the rest of the page is the sky with the plane flying away.
Yeah, to sum it up, I mean, they fight to. In the end, it's only Frank and Stevie left, and they fight to the airstrip. Stevie is killed and dreams that he's made it and safe, etc., etc. And yeah, leaving just Frank, and then eventually the voice. And in two of my favorite pages, I think, from the Punisher books, where he's just absolutely offing Viet Cong soldiers while soaking up a lot of I almost said punishment.
Damage? Yeah.
Damage. And yeah, the voice is telling him, all he has to do to survive this and have a war forever is agree to whatever it is it wants.
That'll be a price, but nothing's free.
Yeah.
You're going to forget that you married Maria, and we're going to kill your grandma.
Yeah.
Also, Dr. Octopus takes over your brain for about 2 years.
Much later, yes. So yeah, Frank, as we all know, I think, survives, and we get this absolutely beautiful single page, which I love, with Frank badly wounded, his gun absolutely shattered, and just dozens of soldiers around him as corpses, and of course the skull in the background, which was a nice sort of subtle touch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
before we get on to the big final battle, I think what really made this fight, this whole giant battle at Valley Forge it made it so exciting for me was they spent 3 issues basically showing you how degraded Valley Forge had gotten at that point, how the rot had set in for this military complex.
Including the heroin abuse.
Yeah.
Wait, you mean you can have scenes in something that are a little slow to depict action later on?
Shut up, you jerk. There's a different... Hang on. Honestly, Ryan, this is not just me having to read this before we record the show, but I read this about 5 hours before the recording session, and it took me maybe, 45 minutes. Like, this book went faster than any of the first 3 seasons of Breaking Bad.
I'm not picking on you for that. I'm picking on a lot of the commentary about Rucka's run, which I agree is slow in parts, but there's something more satisfying to actually having setup versus killing everybody in one issue.
Look, I'm on board with that. I just don't need
this trade. That's the beauty of this trade right there. You have the first 3 issues setting everything up, and then the final day is the battle.
Look, I just don't need a whole issue where Ozzy flips a knife for like panel upon panel upon panel upon panel upon panel.
Flip.
Yeah, flip.
Well, trust me. Like I said, we'll get into my problems with it as well too, and that's one of them. Although my biggest annoyance in that was the Thanksgiving Day / whatever, the issue with the little rat bastard kid. But
look,
yeah, I mean,
she took her husband's name.
Oh, jeez.
Oh man.
I just
sorry.
So this final battle...
I think I'm getting PTSD now.
Yeah. This final battle is pretty gruesome, and it pretty much, like, for any of us that weren't... Well, I don't think any of us were alive back in the time that Nam happened. Unless Ryan is, like, somewhere around 41 years old, but I doubt it.
Not quite, but anyway. No,
yeah. We've all seen war documentaries about Vietnam. Everyone in this room has seen Forrest Gump, even though that's, not the most... it's not the most accurate. It's embellished.
Some of us have mothers who are history teachers, and they learn this stuff.
Okay, there's that.
6 years old.
There is that.
Some of us live in countries where they actually teach about the Vietnam War.
Like America, because that's like required teaching.
And it's not like none of our dads were Vietnam era veterans or anything.
Okay, Jake, you can stop bragging now.
Well, I mean, Ryan, all Ryan can learn about is either this or the war between America and Terrence and Philip. So,
or we could go back to the war where we kicked your asses and burned the White House down.
Yeah, but we rebuilt
Independence Day. Nice
Good
alien
job with
drop.
that. We rebuilt it. It was even fucking better. We basically just cashed in on the insurance. Fuck you.
Sorry, what's that? I was remembering my free healthcare. Anyway.
Oh,
I was
okay,
remembering
so
my
back
stump.
to porn.
How about them apples, bitch?
Wow.
I have no idea what you actually said. So anyway.
Look, I mean, if you're comfortable with government death panels, you fucking Nazis.
Oh, God. Yeah, I love your commercials. They're amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so Frank gets home, the voice is talking to him, and of course, oh, there's a price. Not right now, but there's a price. My first thought, other than thinking that the fact that the family is inside the skull and how cool that last panel is,
Yeah.
why is he married to Carol fucking Brady?
Because
The-
it shows how all-American he is.
Yeah, that's the idea. He's supposed to be going back to what Stevie wanted. And I mean, that's the whole dichotomy of this. And unlike Stevie, there's no going back for him.
Yeah, and behind his daughter is, of course, apple pie, and the son is actually holding a miniature white picket fence to truly
Right.
symbolize the meaning of this scene.
Oh, and I mean,
And if you stare at it long enough, you'll see Mickey Mantle hitting a home run, like in one of those 3D pictures type
well, to
thing.
be fair, I mean, Aaron picked this up as
Yeah.
well immediately when he goes back home. They have the meal, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean,
Yeah.
it's the same idea. He's
And- Exactly. No, go ahead, sorry.
go ahead. No, I was just going to
No,
say he's not that person anymore.
Well, I have the Magic Eye version of this, and if you look on the last page and cross your eyes, you can literally see that black people do not exist in this version of America. It's pretty idyllic.
Oh my god. This whole magic eye thing reminds me of Willem. Oh my god.
By the way, that sounded really racist. I was saying, like, that's what people in the 1950s wanted.
Yeah, there's a reason I didn't
I'm
say
cool with
anything
you.
to that. I was
And the Irish have to go in through the back.
Yeah, that was a kind of an overhyped lie. They never really had to do that, and the Irish did not apply wasn't a real thing. Not really. Anyway.
Anyway, yeah, so
Hey, look, it's a schooner. It's not a schooner, it's a sailboat, dumbass. A schooner is a sailboat, stupid.
Is that from like a movie?
it's
Yeah,
from
from-
Mallrats.
I know
Anyway,
it's from
Thank
Mallrats.
God
I know
somebody
it's from
recognized-
goddamn Mallrats.
yeah, thanks. Anyway, so I mean, a lot of this book really served to, at least for me, I remember when I first read it, and my immediate thought was like, well, and this is pretty much why Frank doesn't necessarily belong in the sort of cartoon universe of a lot of comics.
Yeah.
He's not a cuddly character, and he never really... He sort of was in the 80s. You brought up a lot of the things that kind of ground him in the comic book tropes, but I mean, since then, he's really been taken away from that. And
Yeah.
by the way, I should note that, like, as much as I've bagged on it, I think there's room for both. Like, I like the campy version of Batman as well as the darker one.
Sure.
I'm fine with both existing, so I don't think it has to be one or the other. It would be kind of nice if we could get both. But, I mean, at the moment, and for the foreseeable future, Marvel's not really interested in having two versions of him running around. Hell, Marvel right now is not interested in having one version of him running around. And Thunderbolts...
They're
by the way-
okay with like
Just having
20%
two
of him.
versions of him run around. They could just do another clone saga.
And the hell with this, by the way. I'm just going to bring up Thunderbolts for just a second. What a piece of crap. I mean, I'm depressed. I'm depressed by the fact that people love Soul's version. You know why they love Soul's version? Because Daniel Ways was so fucking god-awful that even banging your head against a wall for 3 hours would be preferable to reading that crap.
Right.
So it's been upgraded to shit from like absolute trash.
Jake and I have spent like hours at this point being perplexed how something could get out of Marvel like that, where it felt like there was a sale on Hulk villains and Thunderbolts just gobbled them up. And it was the worst thing was they spent like a year in Thunderbolts without explaining why this team of loner anti-heroes would ever fucking chill out with each other, and they just explained that like last month. And,
Yeah, I know.
and it was, and even Jake admitted that was kind of a weak ass reason. Like it's a round robin communist vigilante thing. It's not too great, but like it's like when you mentioned earlier how like there's a lot of marketers in comics these days, and I felt like Thunderbolts never had a story to it. It's here's these characters, fucking do something.
And to be fair, I mean, there's nothing in Way's background to suggest that he could write anything really well.
Really?
I guess that's my kind way of saying that he's a terrible writer. I mean, Wolverine Origins is some of the worst comics I've ever read. I can't believe I wasted my time following. I think I read the first 16 issues or so.
Daniel Way's one of those writers that likes to think he's writing stuff that matters, and that always fucks him over.
Yeah, there's an element of that. I'm not a fan of his, so my apologies to anyone who is, but I'm definitely not. Yeah. Where were we again? Yes, Bourne. So any final thoughts from anybody, aside from me?
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really interesting way to show, like, at least a story that most mainstream audiences would not have seen before. Everybody that knows of the character knows that his family got killed. They may not know, most of the mainstream audience may not know the exact specifics and the fact that it happened in Central Park versus Rio. But
yeah. I really like it because it adds that extra layer to the origin. And kind of like, I think you were saying it earlier, Ryan, or maybe it was Dane, but it shows that Frank's life and Frank becoming the Punisher was a continuum, and it wasn't just an on-off switch that just happened when his family died.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he's... it almost seems like he was destined to be the Punisher, and you mentioned this earlier with the 80s stuff, that this is sort of the answer to what kind of person would do it. Now, in the 80s, it was just sort of revenge, and I don't know, my issue with that has always been that with the 80s Punisher, he's long killed the people that offed his family. How long can one person go just based on revenge? And this kind of fills in the blanks. It adds that he was messed up before his family died.
Yeah.
Sure.
And it sort of adds it adds another layer to him and why he's doing it, as well as everything else.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're ever going to go back to a Punisher, because people do forget there are Punisher comics where the dude can, like, go on vacation and smile and fight dinosaurs.
I mentioned it before. I mentioned it before. I think there's room for more than one version of him. It's just, they're not interested in it now. And I hate to say it, but a lot of that is because there's this is something I didn't talk to you guys about before the show, so I'll mention it now. Okay. There's a big feeling at Marvel and other places that the Punisher is a one-dimensional character.
Really? And after all this fucking time?
Hang on.
Okay.
Now, anyone I have talked to will tell you that Ennis dispelled a lot of that with his run, and Aaron helped it out an awful lot, and then Rucka did. The fact that they had 3 now very high-profile writers essentially in a row on the title and sort of building the character helped it out a lot. But the sort of bad offshoot of this is the 80s and 90s stuff it's felt like it's untouchable, that you can't go back to that because that's the one-note era. And I don't think that's true. It's just the characters changed with the times, and the 80s and 90s were all about action heroes and that sort of thing.
Sure.
And I mean, and then another issue, of course, is the fact that the character was dragged through the mud so bad in the 90s. I don't think we'll find too many Punisher fans that were fans of the writing for him in the 90s.
I don't know. He certainly had his fun times in the 90s, but then you run into things like, he's an angel. He's actually running the mafia.
And that's the problem.
That was truly the throw anything at the wall and see what sticks era. And of course, that's hardly a good editorial philosophy for any character.
Exactly. So we're going to take what? What, Dane?
I didn't do my final thoughts.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
Yeah. Come on, guys.
Where are you again?
Let's see here. Just a man pulled from the street. But let's see here. My final thoughts are that this was a really good comic that and I might get some shit for this, but I felt it was somewhat hamstringed when Frank killed that general. I felt like that was something that could have used another revision, simply because I don't necessarily hate the fact that, I mean, I get it. You could argue that Frank was trying to protect his own men, keeping the base alive, maybe protecting his version of America's interests. But that general didn't deserve to get fucking sniped for it, for making a U.S. policy decision.
But okay, now I know which general. I wasn't sure which general you were talking about at first, but now when the guy that couldn't read the fucking sign,
because
Frank was in front of it.
I disagree with you because I like that he did get killed. I think he did need to get killed because he was that U.S. military, and I don't mean any disrespect, but bug up the ass general that was more.
That doesn't make him evil.
He was more worried about how the base looked and what appearances were. This is a friggin' war. You're not going to be able to do, tucked in pillow and all tight corners around your friggin' bed.
Does it make him bad enough to die?
Look, at the end of the day,
Frank's opinion, apparently it does.
Look, at the end of the day, people who are Punisher fans want to pretend that Frank's never killed an innocent or never killed a cop or someone who didn't deserve it. But the history of the book just does not bear that out. That is a myth of the Punisher.
Trust me, I'm familiar with that, considering he hits every single checkbox in the old psychopath list. Right. I mean, on what level is he not? And it's not a bad thing. People want to root for the bad guy. There's people that still love Walter White, and there's other characters that fall into that. I mean, Scarface is believed to be like an anti-hero for an awful lot of people. Wolverine has done some truly horrible stuff, and
no, dude, I feel you. I wrote Martha Stewart letters every day she was in jail.
And on that note, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back with our final ratings on this book in this first episode of Punisher Month here in the Pull Bag after this. All right, we are back here in the Punisher Bag, and we have just talked about the Punisher Born by Ennis. And overall, there wasn't anything too jarring for me. There wasn't anything in the art that I disliked. The story is solid. I'm gonna give it a 5 stars. Perfect. I was surprised at how much I liked it, considering how little I know about the character.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you'll listen to my goddamn recommendations from now on, then.
I usually do, except when it comes to breaking fad.
Oh.
How dare you?
Jake, what is your rating?
I give it a perfect 5 as well.
Dane?
I give it an almost perfect 4.5.
Okay. Ryan?
5 as well. I love the character, and this is one of my favorite sort of early interpretations of him.
All right, so that's going to do it for this first episode of Punisher Month. You can find Jake and Dane over on Facebook. You can search out Punisher Body Count. You can find them over there. Ryan's on Twitter at Nightbeat. I am also on Twitter at TFG1Mike. You can go to geekcastradio.com or punisherbodycount.com and find all the other shows there. And we will catch you next time.
It's been fun.
You just heard the latest episode of The Pull Bag, GCRN's comic book review podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate our show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Call the voicemail line, 502-526-5821. Please remember to tell us the show you were leaving the message for, and your name. Become a fan of us on Facebook by searching Geekcast Radio Network. You can send us an email, feedback@geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter @GeekcastRadio. So until next time, unleash the geek in you.